Well, one of the problems that nobody seems to address, in particular our Congress, about war is that it produces, along with the casualties and the dead, it produces veterans, many of whom have significant problems adjusting to a world in which they are no longer thrilled by the adrenaline rush of combat. It's hard to take a veteran and turn him into a shoeshine boy, you know what I mean? The problem, of course, is going to be manifestly increased by the idea of great causes to which I was a part. In the case of our current situation, the worldwide appeal of jihad. Now, the people who are making war against Western interests in the United States in particular are at this point dedicated, somewhat idealistic veterans who were not allowed to fit back into the countries and societies from which they had been drawn into the battle against the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda originally was a database for the Arab-Afghan front. All of the Arabs that had gone up and volunteered and fought with the Mujahideen were pretty much unemployable and unaccepted back in places like Saudi Arabia and Jordan, and were therefore kind of stuck. And bin Laden put together this kind of veterans of foreign wars, if you will, for the Arab League, and wound up employing most of them in construction projects that he had going around the Middle East. That was the origin of Al-Qaeda, before we put 10,000 Americans into the Holy Land of Saudi Arabia and gave them something serious to be pissed off about. The point here is that we now have an intelligence report from 16 of our own spy agencies, all of whom agree that the war in Iraq has become the cause célèbre of Muslim radicals, particularly young Muslim radicals, around the world. Just as Bobby Seale and Eldridge Cleaver and Huey Newton produced a second generation of hundreds of Black Panther activists because that was what you wanted to be. The same thing applies today to the Jihadis. And when these people have come to Iraq and fought against the American occupation, the puppet government army, etc., they will be, at the end of the conflict, another group of loose cannons wandering around in the Muslim Crescent, dedicated to some sort of a fundamentalist caliphate throughout the Middle East, and ready to fight in any of the various nations in which Western influence and Western puppet governments are currently in charge. There are going to be a vast number of free-roaming jihadi errants for the next 20 years, if we get things settled down now. If we don't, you can consider that this will be the condition of the world for the next half-century. We are making our own enemies in order to stay on course. And that's enough news for now. I'm Travus T. Hipp. On the Pig on the Radio, none of the foregoing commentaries and opinions have in any way reflected reality as perceived by this station, its management, owners, sponsors, or staff, but are solely the responsibility of myself and Cabal News Services.